Okay, here we are. I wanted to point out one more thing about my programming track. All of this fancy extra stuff that I did with the switch really isn't necessary. This programming track could be a completely separate piece of track off on your desk, on your workbench, that is wired completely separately from your layout. The only thing that is required is that it have the two rails wired to the programming inputs on the Zephyr. I chose to do this for the convenience of being able to run a train or an engine onto the track, switch it into programming mode and isolating it, being able to program it, then turn it back and run it back onto the layout. So what we're going to do now is have a little fun. We've got this set up, we have our two locomotives programmed, and we're going to do our best not to derail anything. I'm going to double check our switches here, make sure everything's clear for 6611 to roll out of the station. Put him out onto the main line. Make sure we turn our track power on. That seems to be a continual memory item for me. This Intermountain engine is simply a beautiful operator. It is dead silent, as you can see. It has some very excellent slow speed operating. I'm very, very pleased with it. I will point out that this engine was a gift from a friend that I met online who's been very, very helpful to me, and I'm very grateful for that gift. Make sure we throw the mainline track on, give the engineer clearance to bring her up to speed. Now, one of the tricky things is when you're switching locomotives from one to the other. The Zephyr has a recall stack where it remembers the last two engines that you controlled, and by pressing the recall and then the loco button, you can switch back and forth between the two. You can actually change the depth of that memory to either 2, 4, or 8 locomotives. Right now I only have 2, so it's very convenient. I have both engines stored in here and I can just switch them back and forth, and I don't have to type in the address every time. The tricky part is when you switch engines, the new engine that you switch to is going to pick up the throttle speed that the throttle is set for. So if you're trying to start an engine while the other one is running, you have to be very quick with the throttle to keep from crashing your other engine. Now we're going to check our yard switches here, make sure that we're set for the yard. All's clear. I'm going to press the recall button, which will bring up the previous engine, which was 5278. And with a very quick hand on the throttle, I'm going to press loco and I'm going to roll the throttle back to stop so that it doesn't run off. But so that my 6611 will keep on running. There we go. A little bit unprototypical. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do that. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of switching fun here. Let's turn on the headlight. Maybe a little difficult to see. Now, one thing you should note, my entire layout for you DC folks, this entire layout is wired as a single large block. All of the track, there are no reverse loops, so there's no special treatment required. I need to pay attention to my engineering. There are no reverse loops or anything, there's no special track wiring required, and so all of this track is wired as one large block. And yet, with DCC, I've got two engines running simultaneously at different speeds, different directions, and electrically speaking, they're on the same track. I could also add, if I had the electronic remote switches, I could have remote control of all the switching. I don't have that wired yet, so see, we've switched over onto this track. We're going to pull these guys back out. Now very quickly I'm going to hit recall and loco again. Oops. This guy's backing up because I want to speed 6611 up. Let's get him running kind of fast here. And hit recall and loco again. Again, that little bit of unprototypicalness of the new engine picking up the speed and direction of the previous engine. We're going to back this guy down into his into my second yard track, and then we're going to really have a little bit of fun. I'm going to run both engines out onto the same loop at the same time. I've got 6611 running along here. Okay, we cleared the switch. So now I'm going to throw my switches here to move. I'm actually going to run 6611 up onto the onto my inner loop at the same time that, oops, I set the switches wrong. So as 6611 comes around, we're going to bring 6611 onto the inner main loop, and 5278 is going to pull out onto the outer main right beside them. Hopefully we won't have any crashes. And on this side, we're going to make sure all the switches are aligned so that 6611 can stay on the inner loop. We won't have a crash. And this is just to highlight that you can run different speeds. You can also have obstructions on the track causing problems. So we're going to put 5278 in a stop. And we're going to let 6611. Passenger station is supposed to be here, so we're going to roll him to a stop. One of the things that DCC does not allow you to do is get away from operator error. Physical obstructions on the track, boneheaded moves with your buttons. But after just 20 or 30 minutes of playing with this, I am enjoying it, and I hope you are as well.